about interest in at least investigating the potential. But from what I've seen, there really are not great cost savings to be had. Yeah.
Earlier question, what are the indicators that the state should be looking at to get an earlier handle on when locals are headed for trouble, financial trouble?
So I was hoping that over the course of my comments, a lot of these ideas would pop into my head. One of the things that we, I think what I would like to do rather than make something up is to refer you to probably refer you to Paul Tate at SEMCOG, who is, here's how this discussion is playing out in my head. Right now, the role of the emergency financial manager is to, after a city falls over the edge, to drag it back up. And so in the discussion about should the role of the emergency financial manager be different, in other words, to be able to intervene earlier on, that discussion is going hand in hand with what indicators should folks be looking at. And I have to be honest, I'm not familiar enough with the financial data to be able to say what the specific indicators are. And so I will not try to answer that question in any more detail. Yeah.
You indicated that the results, you were giving us preliminary results. When those results are distributed, are they going to be broken down by the responding units? That is, will we know, for instance, that Hamburg Township responded to the survey, or Torch Lake Township responded to the survey, and how they responded?
Well, so like most surveys, the confidentiality of the individual respondent is assured. So what you will be able to know is, did townships in Southeast Michigan of this size, how did they answer? How did large cities across the state answer? How did cities in this population range answer? So you won't know how an individual respondent answered, because the concern, of course, is that you want respondents to answer accurately and honestly, and if they're concerned that something might be controversial, they might be reluctant to do that. So you can't know what your individual local unit or any given individual local unit said, but the Close-Up, Center for Local, State, and Urban Policy at the Ford School has a beautiful website where you can actually generate tables broken down by types of government and by population. So again, you can't know a specific local government, but you can know how a group of local governments responded.
Then two follow-up questions. One, will that be reported out to the media, or the availability of that to the media, particularly outside of the urban areas, as we head toward northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula? And then also, who funded the survey?
So the answer to your first question, Close-Up, the folks that ran the survey, are preparing a report and a press release. And the University of Michigan's News and Information Services will put out the press release. And so hopefully they'll do a good job in getting the word out that the data are available. And if there are individual recipients that really want and need to have this information, contacting Close-Up directly or me, and I'm happy to pass that information on. But the effort really is being made to make this information widely available. This is not, nobody wants this to be a secret. We want this to be a resource. We want people to know what local officials across the state are thinking and doing and how they're dealing with issues and so on. So the point of the survey is to make this information available, and we would like to be able to do that as effectively as possible. So the plan right now is to release the first major report and the press release, but certainly any help that we could have in disseminating the results would be fantastic from any of you. Just to answer your second question, the Kellogg Foundation provided some initial support for this, but it's primarily funded by the university. So it's funded through the Ford School and through the Center for Local, State, and Urban Policy. It's not outrageously expensive. So, it's web-based and we can, sort of do it on a pretty low budget. But I think you'll see, if you look on the website, it's a beautifully presented, it's very professional and nicely presented and easy to get the summary tables and that sort of thing. So I hope that if any of you are interested in looking further at the data, you'll go to, again, Center for Local, State, and Urban Policy at the Ford School and look at the Michigan Public Policy Survey. I think you'll find it really interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks. I just felt obligated to respond to the township elimination question from earlier, representing MTA here today. Just to point out that townships don't duplicate services. The services that are provided by townships aren't being provided by another local unit of government. So if townships were eliminated, somebody would have to run the elections, collect the taxes, do the assessing. Most likely that would fall to the county level. Traditionally what you would find at the township level is part-time employees doing it for very low wages. If you go to the county level, typically that is full-time employees with full-time benefits. So the actual cost would increase rather than decrease. So I just wanted to make the audience aware of that.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I mean, I think, it's, I think a real value of a discussion like this is that, we can be sure that issues like that are brought to our attention, right? I think it's easy for folks to say, we just have too many townships and we should just get rid of them. But to have a discussion about, well, what does that really mean? Would you be saving money? Probably not. So back to the economics language, there really aren't economies of scale to be had. And I think you make another point, which is the cost differences between the two types of governments are really important. That's often going to be a huge consideration, right? And so sometimes that plays positively and sometimes that plays negatively, right? So, if cities are providing services that the county could provide at a lower cost, for example, they just might be organized differently and different kinds of people are providing those services within the county, that might be an opportunity for cost savings as well. So it's not just township county differences, but across a lot of these different kinds of potential collaborations, you often get, you need to consider on the ground what some of those subtleties are and what would it really mean to have this unit discontinue this service and have this other unit pick it up. And often, certainly in the case of townships, they really are a very lean form of government. So there's not a lot of cost to be saved, and especially if somebody else is picking up the services. I do want to be sure though that to thank you for the question, because it's a very high salience question. A lot of people are thinking about that. So great to be able to discuss it here. Yeah.
You talk about local youth cooperation. I'm also wondering about cooperation between corporations, between nonprofits, between maybe volunteer groups to also help with this.
And a lot of larger scale cooperation has to involve that. So, for example, if you've got a regional economic development program, there are lots of these around the state, things like Automation Alley and the Aerotropolis, and you might have heard of some of these efforts that are going on around the state. Those are truly, public-private collaborations that have a lot of nonprofits, that have a lot of businesses involved. And it really does change the character of the discussion, right? If you've got two local governments talking about sharing services, obviously there are, lots of tricky considerations about how, one unit does things and whether, this unit's culture fits with that unit's culture and what are the cost structures and who would do what if you collaborate. When you add private sector actors and nonprofits to that discussion, the cultural issues become enormous, right? Because, suddenly the businesses can't understand, what do you mean it's going to take 6 weeks to solve that problem? I need it yesterday. And, and then you have the nonprofits who say, well,